Alrighty, we should be live now. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Tapcaf Transmissions. Just for those not in the know, this is the podcast that Corey and I film live on YouTube every week, and then we upload later on Spotify and other platforms that you guys might like. So typically, just so you guys know, we don't really read comments or donations during the recording of this because it is basically just a podcast. Also,
It's not just a podcast.
Well, true. It's not. It's
the only Star Wars podcast.
True. It's the only Star Wars podcast. Also, yeah, as some of you guys noticed in the chat there, I am trying out a new stream background that I had built for X2, and there's lots of fun little references there. You can see the Twin Sun Squadrons logo for one. But give me your feedback on that as well. Usually for we have a different setup for Tapcaf. So anyway, are you ready, Corey? Anything you want to?
I'm ready.
Okay. Also, guys, I am a little sick today, so you might hear some sniffling. I'm going to try to catch most of it by with my mute key, but my voice is obviously a little weird too. And we will also be streaming some Star Wars Squadrons after this. I think, let me just double check what's latest in the chat. I think we're going to go for about 8:30, so about an hour and 20 minutes. With that being said, get that sniffle out. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another extra sick episode of Tapcaf Transmissions, the one and only Star Wars podcast. I am joined today by my very, very luscious co-host, Corey Loses. How are you doing today, young man?
Luscious.
It's not effervescent, but
it's not effervescent, but I'll take it. I'll take the luscious. But heck, I thought we already covered the Krytos virus.
Well, we covered what happened when people on Coruscant got it, but not when I got it. I don't even really know what happened. Like, it was Gus's nose was running a couple days ago. And now I got it, and it's not fun. It's not coronavirus, I don't think. We've got 3 cases of coronavirus in Nova Scotia. Hopefully I'm not number 4.
Yeah, there's you, Gus, Kelsey.
Yeah, hopefully not, but perhaps, I suppose. But yeah, it's not fun. We're also potty training Gus this week, so it's a really fun week for me not to have much energy and be sick. But he's already having less accidents indoors than Charlie. So
I was gonna say is next week Charlie, but you beat me to it.
Actually, I will say today we started his potty training 3 days ago, or yeah, the day before yesterday, I guess, 2 days ago. And without going into too much graphic detail or anything, today no accidents. He learned how to use the potty in 2 days.
That's great.
Yeah, pretty proud of him, and making my job a lot easier. Especially because Kelsey is very pregnant. She's 38 weeks right now, or she will be on Thursday, so it's mostly me running after him. So if he wasn't ready, it would be a really shitty week, literally and figuratively.
So yeah, as far as that goes, we are still technically planning to do the Young Jedi Knight books in order as long as you're here.
Yeah.
But they're whatever we end up talking. I think it's lightsabers that's supposed to be the next episode.
Yep.
But for any of the next couple, there's a good chance that we will not know when the episodes will stop for a couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But we will let everyone know on Twitter at Tapcaf Pod.
Whatever it is. The Tapcaf Transmissions Twitter account.
Yeah, we should know that.
Yeah, we should.
I'm going to open my phone so that I know that.
Okay.
I think it's Tapcaf Podcast, but
yeah,
that might not be true.
I think that's right.
That's Thrawn's Revenge.
That's not it.
At Tapcaf Podcast. So that was accurate. Follow at Tapcaf Podcast, TAPCAF to get all the Tapcaf updates directly into your veins.
And while we are mentioning things that we should be mentioning every episode, don't forget you can also leave this podcast a 5-star rating on iTunes or your podcast platform of choice. Did you see if we got any new fun ratings this week?
I didn't. I figured that was going to be something we'd find out together.
Yeah.
But
I'm looking right now. Reviews. Yeah, we did get a new one. A couple new ones. So we got Star Wars, more like Star Moors. Wow, a great Star Wars podcast, which is no surprise considering that it's the only one out there. I've never learned more about eye color either. Truly an intellectual adventure every week. 11 out of 10. That's from Gary. Thank you. We also got one from James who said, even if this podcast wasn't as epic as it is, it would not matter because this is indeed the only Star Wars podcast out there. 10 out of 10 Winter would do Akbar again. We got another one from Wiry Muffin who says, he also gave 5 out of 5. He says, number 1 in Hungary and our hearts. Came for the war. The lore, sorry, not the war. Stayed for the Winter Akbar fanfic. We got a lot of new reviews, actually.
Well, thank you, everyone, and make sure to leave more, and we'll read them.
Yeah, there's
probably
a lot.
on the podcast at some point.
Yeah, if you guys
we should do an episode of more of that.
Yeah, because we got a lot more positive reviews. So if you guys want us to read yours out and say thank you, leave us a fun one, and leave us a good rating as well. With that being said, is there any news of the week you'd like to talk about before we get into the book, Corey?
No, I guess just Pedro Pascal has still left The Mandalorian, which is going to make it really awkward considering they've also announced he's going to be on season 3. I guess he didn't tell himself that. So
yeah, so what's even the story of that? Like, is that just a Grace Randolph thing that she made up?
It's just basically bullshit where he was offset for a bit. I don't know what if there was even any truth to any of it, but like, no, he's still going to be on The Mandalorian. Like, there's it's just more like they can just make up literally whatever they want out of nowhere.
Yeah, and
it doesn't make people stop listening to them.
No,
which is
yeah, and there will be hell to pay if this supposed Rebels sequel series doesn't happen, because that's the one that all of the big leakers have been pointing to.
Yeah.
So yeah, well, I guess we'll see about that. I guess the only other news is we've been playing a shitload of Squadrons.
Yep. We didn't win the tournament.
We did well though. I'm happy with our performance.
We won 3 out of 4 commendations.
Yes.
And that was fine. So you, Shaq, and Charlie got headsets. Me and Wasted got just
pats on the back
our legs.
GG's. Right now I've got 80 hours in the game, which is a little concerning considering it came out 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I don't have quite that many yet, but I'm sure I'll get up there.
Yeah, I think Alex is at 120 right now or so. He's a monster. All right, so let's get to the book. Today we are reading The Lost Ones, Book 3 of the Young Jedi Knights series. This sees our intrepid heroes move from the lush green planet of Yavin 4, or moon of Yavin 4, to the glitzy, beautiful, but also really shitty Ecumenopolis of Coruscant. What did you think of this book, Corey?
I didn't read it.
Ah, shit. Okay, fair enough.
No. I think I liked it more than Shadow Academy.
Mm-hmm.
I like that we're getting some new characters in, some new friends for Jaina and Jason.
Yeah, Kipter on 2.0.
About on just how kind of spoiled and shitty they are in some ways.
Do you think Kevin J. Anderson is purposely writing them as being spoiled? Because like the first scene in the book is like they're in the Millennium Falcon, they're flying to Coruscant, and Jason and Jaina like to shoot at the asteroids like as target, or not asteroids, the debris from the multiple wars that have been over the planet, and they're like, okay, let's do this, and they just take the turrets with like Tenel Ka and Lobaka just like standing over their shoulders. They don't even think of asking them if they want a chance.
Yeah, they just go to it.
Yeah,
I think it's supposed to just be about how competitive they are with each other.
Yeah,
but yeah, they don't come across as great friends in that part of it. But we got a lot more Loey and Tenel Ka in the last book. We get a little bit of Tenel Ka in this book, but Loey kind of falls by the wayside here, and it's Tenel Ka gets like the one chapter that's kind of about her when she like pulls the bedding off,
Yeah.
and that was most of her stuff, other
Mhm.
than just being like being oblivious to Jason crushing on her.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, there was another moment that I thought really funny too, because they're going to Coruscant partially just to visit Coruscant, but there's also this big kind of banquet there, a diplomatic thing for Leia, who's still chief at state at this point. And so they've got a new friend, Zack, who appears in lots of books later on down the line. And it's kind of funny because one of the main sort of points in the book is that Jaina invites Zack to this big dinner. And then I didn't realize that at that point, Lobaka and Tenel Ka weren't invited either. So it's like kind of rude. And then like later on, Jaina, after she gets permission to take Zack, she kind of just throws it to Leia. And she's like, okay, you can bring them too. But just like these kids, man, they got the most spoiled, privileged life ever. And they're totally like, they totally don't realize how they're acting.
yeah, and like Tenel Ka is kind of in a similar position, but doesn't act the same as them. I guess like no one is as rich as Jason and Jaina.
I don't
in
know.
The galaxy.
I don't know.
But,
I
guess it's older.
I would say the Hapens are very wealthy. Like the New Republic has more wealth than the Hapes Consortium, but Hapes is like is a monarchy, right? So the wealth is actually in the family. Whereas, I mean, I think Leia and Han are definitely loaded, but they're not like, you know, monarchy loaded. I don't think.
Yeah, but like Jason has that Coruscant gem, and he just like, oh, here it go, Leia, and Leia doesn't accept it. But
yeah,
we also know that Leia orchestrated the explosion of Alderaan so that she could keep all the wealth from the planet.
Yep.
So
yep, that's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
Maybe I'm just reading too much into stuff, but I feel like come on, we all know what happened there, Leia.
Can we all agree that Zack is basically Kip Duran 2.0?
I think we can mostly agree to that. I think that's supposed to be what's setting it up for that message box thing at the end.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, is he going to be in there? No, it's just an actual message.
Yeah.
But I like Zack a lot more than Kip. I feel like there's the same like brush with the dark side thing, but when you get to their actual characters, I think Zack is better.
Yeah. I mean, Zack doesn't blow up a star system that I remember. Yeah. He does kind of, yeah.
Maybe sometimes, but
he goes into the bug hole with Jaina, which is one thing, but
yeah.
Because Zack becomes a major character, like in Legacy of the Force and Fate of the Jedi and Swarm War. Like he's right up there, and he's Jaina's love interest in this book, and then he spends a lot of time as her love interest, especially early on in Legacy of the Force.
Yeah. And unlike Kip, her being Jaina's love interest is not creepy as shit. Especially when Kip is doing that and it's not reciprocated.
Yeah.
When there's like a fucking 12-year age difference. And this is at the start of the Yuzon Vong War, where Kip is like almost 30 and she's only 16?
Yeah.
It's
fucking weird. Creepy. And
like Kip is gross.
In this book, though, we are seeing the kind of, well, I mean, that's because he spent his formative years in a fucking mine with spiders.
Yeah, well, stick with the spiders.
We do see the true blossoming of young love in this book, though. So we've got Jason, who I think it alludes to a sort of crush on Tenel Ka in prior books, but in this one, it really kind of makes it very clear that he's really feeling her, because he's like dreaming about her, like, well, not dreaming, but he's like fantasizing about her touching his arm and like just stuff like that.
If I had been knocked out, that would have been great.
What if she had to perform mouth to mouth on me?
Yeah, like the Zack and Jaina stuff, it seems pretty one-sided, with Jaina having kind of like a crush on Zack.
Yeah.
And kind of the same thing with like Jason, one-sided crush on Tenel Ka. But
yeah, I mean, we see less of Tenel Ka's perspective in this book. We get quite a bit of Zack. I mean, Zack might be feeling it too, but there's also the thing that he doesn't think he's worthy, like, because he's basically a street urchin, whereas Jaina and all of his other friends basically are either Jedi or nobility or both. So maybe he just hasn't allowed himself to get to that point yet.
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah.
But like we know Luke already made Tenel Ka made a joke around Luke last time, and that's something like Jason still thinks she doesn't have a sense of humor at all.
Yeah.
So
Tenel Ka's got a crush on Luke at this point from the last book, anyways. Or like she's very, very impressed with him anyway. Like he's the only one who's elicited any sort of emotional reaction out of her whatsoever.
Well, she makes a sarcastic comment to Tamith Kai next to Jason. I thought that would get some sort of reaction because that was basically a joke. Where in Shadow Academy, Tenel Ka like curb stomps Tamith Kai and almost like breaks her shin or something, so she's still limping.
Yeah.
In this book, and Tenel Ka sees her's like, "Hey, how's your shin doing?
Yeah.
How's your ankle doing?"
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, good shit, Tenel Ka. But
it's just so funny. I just imagined her running up and just booting her in the leg, then turning around and running away, like a Family Guy skit or something.
Yeah. So I guess we should do a quick rundown of the overall plot of the book before getting too deep into any of the specifics.
Sure.
But Jason and Jaina, they're back from their stint at the Shadow Academy, and we start off on Coruscant, where there's going to be this diplomatic event. We meet Jason and Jaina's friend Zack, who we've been talking about, who's kind of like a street urchin, and they go to a diplomatic event that Leia's hosting with cousin It, I think, from
yeah, it's kind of how I imagined it.
And so Zack eats the what are they called?
It's just like
pieces, but potpourri essentially.
Yeah,
is what it is.
It's basically like an arrangement.
Yeah, an inedible arrangement. Zack eats it, and then Leia starts eating it to make him seem less uncomfortable. Jane is like, "Hey, that wasn't a salad." Zack gets all embarrassed. He runs off, gets kidnapped by the Shadow Academy, and the rest of the book is spent kind of looking for Zack. Yeah. And unlike the previous books, where it's all resolved in the space of one book, this is the first time we really get a two-parter, because I think in Lightsabers, the rest of the Shadow Academy arc gets handled, and we get the
Lightsabers. I think was my favorite one of these books as a kid, so I'm really excited to read it.
Tenel Ka said it was hands down her favorite. You all get that
you'll
joke
get that, soon. We also get introduced to Anakin. I think for the first time in any of the books we've read, besides for Dark Empire, we see little Anakin here. Or no, he's been in the Jedi Academy trilogy as well.
Like he's been there, but he hasn't. Like it's kind of the same thing I said in the first episode of the Young Jedi Knights stuff, where like Jason, Jaina, and Anakin are there, but they're not really characters yet. And this is really the first place that they become characters, where they have an actual personality of their own or lines of their own, and they're not just a blob, which babies usually are.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Or I guess Corellian trilogy, but we haven't covered that yet.
And Anakin does a lot in this book. It seems like him and C-3PO are always off, like gallivanting through the Coruscant Undercity.
Which seems totally unsafe. And why this is allowed for any of these kids is like Jaina and Jason, I get, because they're the main characters, so they have to have something happen to them. But if something happens to Anakin, it's going to be off screen.
Yeah.
So this is just more evidence that Leia is an absolute trash parent.
Yeah, she like checks in and she's like, well, the kids wouldn't do anything they couldn't handle when like they're getting mugged, they're getting shocked. Like the Solo kids at this point are very lucky. So is Lando, that the Imperium seems to be completely against killing people.
Yeah.
A lot of stunning at this point.
Yeah.
Including Akbar. Like, okay, how do you not realize that's Akbar? You shoot Akbar, that's a pretty serious blow to the New Republic.
Yeah. Why is he on a fucking weapon shipment?
Yeah.
Like, what is Akbar doing there?
Yeah. That was a little odd. Like, you'd think maybe he would be escorting it in, like, the Galactic Voyager or something, but, he's flying the thing. That's just, like, imagine, like, some high-ranking, like, general or admiral in the real-world Navy or Army, like, driving a transport truck. It's like, get on! Like, someone get me my hat. Oh, sorry. There's probably truckers that listen to this podcast. I think I always wanted to be a trucker, so I don't know why I'm teasing. Listen to so many Star Wars audiobooks.
So jealous, Justin.
Yeah.
So one of my first notes is like really early on in the book, where they're talking about Zack really knowing the Coruscant underworld, and Zack says, "I've had plenty of practice. Some of us don't take regular trips off planet to go to diplomatic functions all the time. I have to amuse myself with what I can find." Like, Zack is clearly bitter as fuck already.
Yeah.
So it's not a surprise that Brackus was able to get him to believe or to go along with some of the Shadow Academy stuff that easily. But it seems like he's still like that. Zack still is like, "Oh, I'm gonna make something of myself there and come back, and you're all gonna be proud of me." Based
he doesn't
on his
quite understand. Yeah, he doesn't want to understand what falling to the dark side really entails.
Well, it's still like, these are the people that kidnapped your friends, even if you're kind of annoyed at them.
Yeah,
it's like, yeah, maybe you'd never got those opportunities in the New Republic yet, but like now they know you're a Force sensitive. Just maybe have one conversation with Luke and be like, "Yeah, testing is hard. There's billions and trillions of people in the galaxy.
Yeah,
and yeah, now that we know, you want to come have a lightsaber and be a young Jedi Knight."
He gets him at a vulnerable moment. I mean, like,
yeah.
So he gets him when there's no one there to tell him that. So
yeah,
like,
but they act like they didn't kidnap him, or
it's because Brackus is so handsome.
That is true. Brackus, we learn, is very handsome.
Well, I've
seen
knew that.
pictures of the guy. He looks like he's a member of NSYNC, a specific member of NSYNC.
Really?
Yeah. So,
I'll have to look that up later. We also learn in this book, as I've kind of hinted at in the title, that, well, we learned last time that the Shadow Academy is being run by a great master off in the distance. Even though the Shadow Academy seems to be pretty small, because that one shipment of weapons is like, seemed to be kind of a major boost for them. But yeah, it's supposed to be Palpatine. Palpatine is returned. Brackus is talking to him. He believes he's communicating with Palpatine. We get a direct reference to his death at Endor, and then his death again during Dark Empire. But yeah, we'll learn more about that soon. But spoiler alert, it's not actually Palpatine. It's
just a recording.
It's sort of similar to what goes on with the Triumvirate and the Thrawn duology. Where that's, although I think that's a bit more interesting. But
yeah, like, this is just edited recordings essentially, right?
I think so, yeah.
So, like, how stupid is Brackus? At least Flim was there in the Hand of Thrawn duology to trick people, and like, you had Tears giving them the actual information. But this is just like,
Flim is also really good at bullshitting as well. Like, he just nails it a few times. Like, there's a couple occasions where, like, he'll be pretending to be Thrawn, and like, he'll have to actually issue orders, and he kind of nails it.
Yeah, like, with this, I kind of left this book with the impression, or like the Shadow Academy arc, with the impression that like Brackus is the kind of person that would fall for the spam phone calls that it's like, "There is a complaint on your social security number.
Oh God, no.
Please call and give all your information to the FBI at this private phone number." And like, come on.
Yeah.
Brackus, you're an idiot.
Yeah, he's not nailing it. I mean, he also served under Queller, so like, I'd say his judgment's probably not the best.
That's true.
Yeah. But
like, if you saw Kueller, wouldn't you think like, "Hey, that's some armor I can get behind"? You look like the evil guy in Fairly Odd Parents.
I mean, he does have that cool mask. It's like the death mask or whatever. Yeah,
he looks like the evil guy from Fairly Odd Parents. I think it's Fairly Odd Parents.
I remember the end of the New Rebellion. I'm pretty sure doesn't it end up with like millions of droids being blown up, or like they have to be disassembled or something? Because like the whole plot of that is, all the droids in the galaxy have like bombs in them.
I haven't finished.
Oh, sorry for spoiling it for you.
Yeah, it is the Fairly Odd Parents film. On my end, I'm gonna put up a picture of that. But yeah, that's
Fairly Odd Parents villain.
If you just look up Fairly Odd Parents evil guy, I forget what his name is.
Oh yeah.
But
yeah, wow. He looks just like him.
Yikes. Yeah, it's not.
Yikes.
Not good.
Not good. So, let's talk more about Zack, I guess. How do you feel about him as a character? Do you think he's a good addition to the 4 we've got so far, or is he too much of a cliche? I mean, eating the arrangements at a fine diner is like that's a comedy staple of the unsophisticated person trying to be sophisticated.
Yeah, but that's also a deep-seated fear I have. So I 100% identify with or places that put like a garnish on the dish. You're not supposed to eat that. Like, why would you put something you can't eat on the dish? And this is something that Gordon Ramsay feels very strongly about, and I appreciate Gordon Ramsay for his strong stance on this. And I can understand where Zack is coming from with this. Maybe it's a bit cliche, but there's a reason for that. And it's because it is a terrifying thing to expect to go through or to be afraid that you're going to go through. And my response to that fear has been to never eat a salad. So
I got to say, too, that the Solo kids aren't very cash money about it. Like, they don't handle it very well at all.
No, Leia gets points for what she does here.
Yeah, but
the ambassador's like totally in on it, too. It's like, that thing you did where you ate the table decorations, that was pretty great.
Jaina leans over and she goes, "That was kind of dumb." He's like, "Oh."
I feel like that's what I'd say as well. Like, she didn't just announce like, "Hey, look at this idiot. Get a load of this."
I guess they're kids as well. Like,
yeah, I would absolutely respond the same way. Like, if you're I can see both sides of this where I would be terrified of doing that, but if I saw someone doing that, I would absolutely be like, "Hey, why'd you do that?" But
yeah, not they're kids. Like, they all have their insecurities and stuff, which I kind of like.
Yeah.
My other note was there were a lot of references to. I like the mirror station in this because that was a staple of Wedge's gamble. Yeah. And we even get reference to the... was it an Ozzel that worked in the station, I thought?
I think it was Anita?
Okay.
Varth Nita or something?
Oh, yeah. And they mentioned that, like, it's the... Working in the orbital stations on Coruscant was a punishment for, like, poorly performing Imperials. And that's basically what happened to Lorth Nita, except he wasn't necessarily poorly performing, but he was related to the other Nita.
Yeah.
So I thought that was
brought shame onto his family.
Yeah, I thought that was a nice connection there.
Yeah, there was on the topic of Leia's parenting in that scene with Zack at the table. Like, we get the point after where Leia is going to be finalizing some diplomatic talks, but she tells them, like, "No, I've just realized I need to spend tonight with my kids." It's like, that's the first time you've ever had that thought, isn't it?
I guarantee, like, somebody else called off the talks. She's like, "Those kids aren't going to check." Those kids ain't checking. And then she goes with it. Like, the kids, I was just thinking when I was potty training Gus this week, like, do you think Leia and Han potty trained Jason, Jaina, and Anakin? No, C-3PO did. Winter and C-3PO. And probably
everything they learned from a parental figure. It was Winter or C-3PO.
Probably Daddy Akbar a little bit too.
Yeah, well, Akbar, if you're getting trained in anything by Winter, Akbar is going to be there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, he is. Getting trained in something.
Okay, that's kind of weird.
It is kind of weird. I don't know if there's honestly not a whole lot that I want to talk about for this book. I mean, it's fun. It's nice to... The Coruscant's kind of portrayed very similar to how it was in pretty much everything that's come before it at this point. It's still big, but like the underworld is like something that the kids can explore like in a day, kind of. Whereas like Coruscant in the Clone Wars, or like Coruscant in how it's been a kind of showed after the prequels, it's like thousands and thousands of stories, where it's like in this book it's like you go down a ladder and you're pretty much there.
Yeah. Like there isn't a lot that ends up being resolved in this book, so it is a bit difficult to say too much about any of it without finishing lightsabers as well. There were a few things that I thought were kind of weird, like going
back to the I think they see the Bothan who was also in who was in Jedi Academy 2. The one who's the Tauntauns.
Yeah. They went on like a family ski trip in this.
Yeah.
And there's the Tauntaun riding. But Peckham, when he's up in the mirror station, his entertainment system doesn't work up there. So he's basically sitting there alone for like 12-hour shifts with literally nothing to do, because it just sounds like both a tedious job and a job where there's not much actual input you need to do. You're just sitting there all the time.
Touch a button, like move the mirror 1 degree if the computer doesn't do it.
Yeah. So Jaina and Zack basically promised to look into fixing that for Peckham, and they passed a shuttle that had crashed in the underside of the city, and the kids they're what, 12 we determined maybe ish, and they see this skeleton sitting in the lambda shuttle. It's like, hey, look, guys, a dead person. He's rotted. Like, this is not weird to you? How many skeletons have you seen?
I mean, Yavin is pretty spooky. Like, there's definitely some skeletons on Yavin, but
they haven't seen that many dead people. It's like, this is a human skeleton in this shuttle, and they're
happy-go-lucky, man.
Though,
happy-go-lucky.
I guess that's just creepy go fucky. But
creepy go fucky.
Jaina is like promising to look at that shuttle, get the what is it called? Essential multitasking unit, and get that from the shuttle to the station. And I was just thinking about like what the real world equivalent of this would be, or that's basically a CPU.
Yeah, pretty much.
And this would be like if you found a shitty laptop from 1996 in the garbage. It's just like 100-year-old shuttle is what they're saying, so it's not a Lambda. But it's like, oh yeah, I'm just going to pull it out of there. It's like getting that 1996 laptop CPU, shoving it in like your smartphone. Like, oh yeah, it does the same thing.
Plug it into this vital piece of infrastructure around Coruscant. Yeah. You're that was a little weird. There's a few things about this book too that are kind of strange. Did you notice that like there's a lot of part of this is probably because I'm reading it on ebook and it's not really formatted 100% correctly, but did you ever feel like some of the transitions between scenes was a little weird, or like they'd spend, I guess there would be like times where they would do a lot without like kind of laying it out like they would in other Star Wars books? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's partially a limitation of like you need to do
it's like a kid's book
under a certain amount of pages with a kid's book, and this actually has a lot more characters. Even if there's not as much that ends up happening, because it doesn't get resolved in this book, it's waiting for lightsabers. There are a lot more different sections with different characters.
Yeah.
So each individual one feels like it gets a bit less attention than it might have gotten in Shadow Academy or Young Jedi Knights, even, or whatever, Heirs of the Force.
Yeah.
Where like in Heirs of the Force, you got like maybe a Jaina, Jason, Lowy, or Tenel Ka chapter, but in this you're going between Jaina, Jason, Tenel Ka once or twice, Zack a couple times, and there's a bunch of different stuff, Peckham even.
Yeah.
And like I kind of got lost in what was happening when Anakin, Jason, and
where Jaina goes up to the station, you mean?
Yeah, it was
yeah,
like
me too.
Oh, like I thought Jaina was in on this as well. Like, no, Jaina's up at the station. But I think that's kind of what that's coming from.
Yeah, that confused me too. I thought Jason was with them, and I was like, oh, okay, I guess not. I also, as an adult reading a children's book, I'm frustrated about how vague they are with all the ship stuff. They were like, a New Republic fleet. I'm like, tell me what's in there.
Well, it sounds like a fleet in this book is like 3 starfighters. Because Quarrel, when they get those hyperdrives and the weapons, like, what if we just put this on some of our fighters? We'll have so many spacefaring light speed vessels. Like, no, that's 3 TIE fighters, dude.
Yeah, and it's like they've got one thing too is they describe like the starfighters having turbo lasers on them, bristling with turbo lasers, but it was like talking about a starfighter.
Yeah,
I don't know if that was just, but it's like Kevin Anderson, so like I wouldn't expect him to screw that up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and there's when they find the Shadow Academy, because the Shadow Academy is able to cloak, and it's basically sitting in Coruscant's orbit.
Yeah.
and Jaina sees the fighters from it, and that's what kind of tips her off.
Yep.
She has like this paragraph about how she studied all the Imperial fighters with Han, and she'd recognize them anywhere. That those are short range fighters. Like,
It's a TIE
are
fighter.
they just TIE fighters?
Yeah.
You've looked at the entire historical back catalog of the Empire to be familiar with the fucking TIE fighter. Come on, Jaina.
And it's like it's basically like everyone's been looking at this information. No one's spotted anything weird, and then Jaina and then later Lobach are like, "Oh my god, we just figured something out." And it's like the fact that if there's TIE fighters, there's got to be a cruiser or something somewhere.
We watched episode 4.
Yeah. It's like, is like New Republic intelligence on vacation today?
Yeah, there was one other thing that was kind of weird with
Asteroids?
established lore. Where, like, was Coruscant not established as being a core world yet? Because like it was in the
Yeah,
X-Wing
that was
book,
weird.
It was,
Yeah.
but where they're talking about where
Hippies,
Cousin Min is from, and they're saying they're on Coruscant right now. So this is the perspective we're looking from, where they say, out beyond the Hapes cluster, near to the core systems, his mother answered.
Which would be like right where Coruscant actually is.
Yeah, so like if you're in the core, Hapes would be up here. I'm trying to do it for the perspective of my webcam, but it's kind of like up and to the right.
Mhm.
And then you're looking from the core. So out beyond the Hape sector towards the core would be back towards where you are.
Yeah.
Coruscant is in the core, like not the deep core, it's in the core.
Mhm.
And then Jaina's like, aren't there still some Imperial strongholds in the core systems? It's like, yes, in the deep core, but like you're in the core too right now, Jaina. Don't get scared about that. But...
Yeah, well, it's pretty clear that when they say core in this, they mean deep core. Because I think in one of the books they say core is they refer to the core as the center of the galaxy. In one of the prior books.
But like the way that it's being talked about here makes it sound like it's Coruscant. Then you go deeper towards the core, and then there's Hapes, and then you go deeper towards the core, and then there's the Imperials. But
yeah, Hapes is like directly east of Coruscant, I'm pretty sure. So
yeah, it's like
maybe
east,
a little northeast. Yeah,
but it's like out kind of mid-rimmy.
Yeah,
but it's kind of weird.
Yeah,
as far as that goes.
And that would have been established already as well. Like we're not
that was Wedge's game, or like pretty much the earliest X-Wing books. That was a thing.
Although now that I'm thinking about it, I think we might have some of this backwards because Wedge's Gamble actually came out after this book.
Did it?
Yeah.
Were all the X-Wing books after this? So maybe it wasn't established.
Yeah.
But I thought even the Thrawn trilogy, didn't it have Coruscant is in the core?
Yes. The core thing, I was thinking mostly about the orbital satellites as well. I was thinking that was taken from X-Wing, but really, I guess it was the other way around. Which is interesting. But Hapes would have been in Courtship, and that came before this, I'm pretty sure. I think that was 94. Maybe not, though. Yeah, 94. It's such a weird timeline because it's in this era especially, you've got Thrawn first. We've talked about this a bunch of times. You get Thrawn first, and then you get a bunch of stuff. Thrawn first in release period, but kind of far along, like 9 ABY, and then after that you get lots of the earlier stuff, and then this came out in 95, so still pretty early. Or was Thrawn 92?
I think it was 92.
Yeah. So then you get all of this stuff. This is like in the 20 ABY, then you got stuff in between, so it's all kind of weird from a timeline perspective. And then you've got like the X-Wing books, which are set very early on and are very kind of important parts of the universe, but are and are fan favorites, but are actually kind of late compared to some of these books when they were written anyway.
Yeah. One of my other notes is like there's the thing I was kind of referencing it earlier, but when Zack is talking to Brackus about like Brackus was saying, Zack was saying that Jane and Jason were tortured, kidnapped and tortured by Brackus. I don't know if I agree necessarily with the torture characterization.
Maybe the only I guess Lobaka was definitely tortured.
Lobaka was tortured, yeah.
I guess when they were forced to fight each other.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of but yeah. So like Brackus is saying that he wished he could show him the Shadow Chaser, but Luke Skywalker took it when he charged in here to capture our trainees, Jason, Jane, and Lobaka. Like, come on, dude. Like, I know you're trying to kind of brings Zack in as like, oh, we were the victims, but like, really, is that the tactic you're going to take with that, of like claiming that it was actually Luke who kidnapped Jaina and Jason?
Well, I mean, it is kind of smart because he probably sees Luke as like similar to Jason and Jaina, like they're like these prissy, like overprivileged, people who don't understand what he's going through,
Yeah, but if you're gonna take that approach and try to push him more towards thinking that, like, why take such an obvious, like, I get trying to like skew the perception of it,
Yeah.
but why take something of like, no, Jaina and Jason definitely didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
And they were happy they got rescued by Luke.
Yeah.
So why present that as Luke coming and kidnapping them?
Yeah.
Like,
no, you're right on that. No, that is a good point.
What else did I have for notes? There was one other thing from that kind of conversation where Zack is, so the Lost Ones, the titular Lost Ones, which almost never come up in this.
Yeah. Forgot to talk about them. They're like miscreants, runaways
on Coruscant. Yeah.
Kids largely.
Yeah, and they want to recruit Zack because Zack doesn't want to join them, but then Brackus kind of wants to use Zack to bring them into the Shadow Academy, where they train any of the Force sensitives, which maybe there's one or two.
Yeah.
And everyone else gets to join the army.
Mm-hmm.
But Zack tells Jason and Tenel Ka when he gets confronted by them, because he's down there doing the recruiting with Jason and Tenel Ka find. Zack says, anyone who have talent will be recruited in the Imperial military forces, or rather, anybody who joins us but doesn't have the talent, being able to use the Force, will be recruited into the Imperial military forces, given responsibilities and a chance for advancement in the Second Imperium.
Mm-hmm.
And Jason says, "Oh, Zack, those are all lies designed to lure you into dropping your guard." Like, is anyone really thinking that joining the Second Imperium's military is this big, great thing?
Yeah, I mean,
they're not lies. They'll let you do that. You don't want to do that.
Yeah, like the Shadow Academy is a bit more. I can get why people would fall for that, especially someone like Zack, because it is kind of alluring to learn your Jedi powers and everything. But like joining the Imperial military is becoming a stormtrooper. Everyone knows what that means. But that being said, we're getting to the point where the characters featured in this novel were born pretty long after the end of the Galactic Civil War, or not the end of the rebellion, I guess, or the end of the Empire being the major party. So like Jaina and Jason, they never lived under Imperial rule, so Zack never lived under Imperial rule, so maybe I guess he doesn't know exactly what it means, but
Brackus is even talking about how they're like not very militarily powerful. So like, yeah, I get why like maybe Zack would want to go and learn to become a Jedi of some kind, but then for the other ones, it's like, you're just gonna get shot by the New Republic.
Yeah,
this is a bad idea for you.
Yeah. So how is this? Is the Second Imperium tied with the rest of the Imperial Remnant at this point?
Not really, because this would be when Dala is reuniting the replacement warlords, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And so the fake emperor thing probably wouldn't fly with her.
Uh-huh.
And it doesn't seem like they have the support of many others. So I think the Second Imperium was basically at most a couple worlds in the Shadow Academy. I don't think it was tied to the Imperial Remnant itself.
Yeah.
This would be after the Pelion-Gaverson Treaty as well.
Mm-hmm.
So Pelion isn't signing off on any of this shenanigans against the New Republic. Maybe Dala would be, with leading the warlords in the Deep Core, but I don't think Pelion is, like, maybe there's some like ties between them and the Moffs where some of them are funding that, but then they would also have to know that that's not actually Palpatine, or they would be going for it, and they're not going for it.
Yeah. So
I don't know how exactly it got retconned, because this would obviously, none of that would be established by the time these books are being written. That was all later source books usually, but I don't think there's much connection between them and the actual Imperial Remnant.
Yeah, I mean, part of it is just Brackus seems to be an idiot.
Yeah. I think that's the main takeaway from this is Brachus is an idiot.
Yeah, I agree, and we get that lots.
So, how did you feel about the book compared to Heirs of the Force and Shadow Academy?
I really like this one. Thought it was fun to go on Coruscant. I like this more than book 2, but I'd say book number 1 still slightly inches it out.
Yeah, and I think for me, like lightsabers is going to be the best of the 4 so far.
Yeah, no, I agree. I definitely agree with that. Because that's the one I remember most as a kid, and that one's really fun. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's still such an enjoyable read. You can sit down and crush it in,
an hour tops.
an hour, 2 hours. Yeah, it's a fun read. It's pretty simple, but they do a good job with the characters, especially it's a kid's book, but it's certainly readable as an adult. I get lots of questions like, do you recommend these books? I think we answered that last time. Personally, I do recommend it. You've got to kind of know what you're getting. This isn't the Thrawn trilogy or Plagueis or whatever else, but it's still enjoyable, especially if you do have some bit of nostalgia with it.
Yeah, like even if you don't if you are looking to read any of the later books like New Jedi Order, I think they're worth the price of admission. Basically,
Yes.
like the time you put in to read these books with the extra context you'll get for reading some of the later stuff. I think it's worth it because you are at most talking like an hour each, 2 hours each.
Yeah.
Maybe there's some that you end up skipping, but they're if you even just read a couple of them and get some more information on like where Jason, Jaina, Loe, Tenel Ka come from, then I think they're definitely worth reading. Even just book 1, and see how you feel about them. They're unfortunately hard to find.
Yeah, they are.
But
and they don't have e-versions. Maybe once we read all of them, we can give a kind of recommendation of which ones are required, which ones are maybe, and which ones are skip, if there are any skips. I don't know. But yeah, that's all I've got for today. Should we read a few emails and?
Yeah, we'll pop through a few emails, and then we've got Squadrons in half an hour.
Yeah. Okay, let me just open up the. I should have done this a few seconds ago. The tab. We got lots of emails today, actually. And,
we did. We even got like 2 or 3 while the podcast was going on.
Yeah. The first one's from Kaylee or Cal, or sorry, Caleb. My mistake. And I think we'll answer his question later. He says, "Are these 4 Red Guards explained anywhere? Since we're told in Crimson Empire that Karnor Jax basically kills all the Red Guards except Kirk Canos." I mean, I don't know if he kills all the Red Guards. He kills like a majority of them when they have that sort of like meeting.
Yeah.
But that's a good question. I don't think they're explained anywhere. But
yeah, I think they're just off doing other stuff. Like they're not part of the Crimson Empire area.
Yeah.
Or the main Empire area.
Yeah.
Because they're probably coming from the Deep Core if they're doing this. But
yeah,
like maybe they just split off after Palpatine's death at
yeah. I mean, because
Abyss.
One thing is too, from what I remember, a lot of the Imperial guards that were killed were ones who were still really loyal to Palpatine, so maybe that's why they weren't there.
Yeah, because these guys are probably not super loyal to Palpatine if they're taking his name in voice recording.
Yes, exactly.
Then we got another question from David, who says, "Hey, Corey and Justin, first off, thank you for all the content you put out. I'm a big fan of both your channels. Do you have any plans to cover the Republic Commando series in the future?" So basically our plans are to cover everything. It's just a matter of when we get to it.
I think we may have got that last time.
Yeah, maybe.
Got intention grabbing opinions, some sort of spam here. We have Maeve with a few questions about Zack. Do you think Zack was a character who was planned from the very beginning of the series? I think probably. I've seen some readers express the suspicion that he was only added at the last minute to make the Shadow Academy arc more personal to the Solo twins and give them emotional investment. But if you remember the abrupt non-introduction of Karana T and Dorsk 81, it seems Kevin J. Anderson has a habit of dropping in secondary characters. Yeah, I feel like a lot of this was probably one longer story that was kind of split up, at least the individual arcs. Yeah. And let's see. She also mentions that there is kind of a discongruent. Is that a word? Discongruency? incongruity. How do you say that word?
Discongruence would be probably the
Between the Solo family and Zack, and you do kind of see that a little bit, like especially with Leia in this book. The Solos are always kind of portrayed one way, or at least they're explained as being one way. And she also mentions how Han is supposed to be a loving husband and devoted father, but then he spends years away from his children and would rather ski with Kip Duran. Yeah, there are definitely discrepancies there. And the Solo family could have definitely done a lot more to help Zack out. And you've kind of got to decide for yourself whether you think that's writing on purpose or an oversight by Kevin J. Anderson, or just the simplicity of a children's book.
Yeah, like I think there's definitely a disconnect there for all of those characters, but I think it's getting to like the specifics of what comes out versus the core of who they are, where it still works. Where like for the Han thing, for example, like yeah, Han runs away a lot, but if you get to the core of who he is, he still does value his family that much. And part of why he runs away, for example, when Chewie dies, is because Chewie kind of fits into that core for him. And it's something that Leia actually talks about with Jason and Jaina and Anakin after Chewie dies when Han's out running around the galaxy, where it's like to Han, Luke and Leia and the kids and Chewbacca even always seemed like these immortal, impenetrable people, even if he was always feeling like he needed to protect them. And then when that was proven not to be true, that there was something that could kill them and that he couldn't stop it, that kind of just broke him. And I think with Zack, even you get the thing where like he is really reliable, but then he goes off and does this. But you do get the explanation of like Zack thinking he's doing this to kind of prove that he's worthy of being with them. So from Zack's perspective, he's already let them down by being who he is, and he thinks that the way he can really make this up to them is by being by going and becoming a dark Jedi and then coming back and be like, hey, look, this is me now. And I know that's not the example for Han that you were talking about.
No, I know what you mean though.
The Kip stuff, but that's kind of, I think it's coming from a similar place.
Yep. No, that's
the kids weren't around at that point already, and I think that's because we actually talked about this last time with Children of the Jedi, where I think we both came to the conclusion that like, no, Han actually gives way more of a fuck about their kids than Leia does.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, Leia's busy, but there's definitely a bit of a disconnect there. So that's a great question. Thank you very much, Maeve, for those ones. Joel has an interesting question. What do you think? I'll basically distill it to kind of one sentence. Do you think the expanded universe will be remembered, the Legends expanded universe that is, will be remembered in 10 to 20 years now that new canon is kind of the way a lot of people are being introduced to the Star Wars EU?
I think that there's a lot more transfer between the two universes than a lot of people kind of think. We're like, for a lot of people who are maybe if you're really deep into it, you'll probably be like, oh, I like this universe over the other one. But if you are just like a casual Star Wars fan that wants to see a Star Wars story, a lot of people may read, for example, like Alphabet Squadron or Lost Stars, and they're like, oh, I like this, I'm going to read more. Go to their bookstore, go on Amazon, go on the Google Play Store, whatever, audible.com, and they'll be like, oh, look, this is this other highly rated Star Wars book, I'm going to read or listen to that. It's the Thrawn trilogy. And like, sure, they're not in the same continuity, but for a lot of people, they don't give a fuck about that. It's just Star Wars story that they want to read. They don't necessarily care about like, oh, this is part of this continuity, but not part of that continuity. A lot of it's still available. With these ones, it's not. Like with the Young Jedi Knights, they're not actually that available, but that's been the case for a long time, and it's just a printing thing. But I don't think there's really that much of a danger of them like going away entirely, as long as there's some interest in Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that when it comes to like the Thrawn trilogy, but I think the Bantam era books are going to continue to kind of fall into obscurity, sadly.
Yeah, but that was kind of already the case.
Yes,
even
exactly.
Like I feel like when you're talking about it as a canon versus legends thing, that kind of obscures the point there of like it's more of a publishing issue with those, especially with these where it's availability rather than the fact that they're canon or not canon. Or in some cases, it's also a quality issue where, quite frankly, there are some Bantam era books specifically that are not good.
Yeah, I guess my point is that, like, even just having books with Zack in them, which would be the case if, you know, like, I'm sure Zack would have made an appearance in the Sword of the Jedi series. Like, that kind of indirectly does keep these books alive somewhat, I guess. But I do agree that the sort of decline, it is a decline in popularity and sort of falling into obscurity a little bit would have happened regardless. But that's why we started the only Star Wars podcast to talk about books like this. And we spend some time ragging on the ones we don't like Children of the Jedi, and that certainly doesn't help.
I don't think there's anyone who would have found Children of the Jedi and been put off by it. It deserves to have people put off.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough there. Let's read the next. Do you have the next email written or pulled up? I think it's Vince next.
Yes.
We kind of discussed this a bit in. I think I know your answer to this. This is from Professor McCoy, as he terms himself. He asks whether he thinks it's possible that Palpatine was really Darth Bane all along because of the essence transfer thing. And I think I'll just try to because we had probably a 30-minute conversation on this point when we discussed the book. I think to distill our conversation, the book does, in my opinion, leave that possibility open. But there's nothing that's really picked up on that. The author has straight up said that's not the case. To me, that doesn't matter what the author says afterwards. I think it's fun being ambiguous, but even if he did manage to transfer his essence on one occasion, I don't think that indicates that he had transferred his power the entire time. And like with Palpatine specifically, like if you're using the Legends version of the character, like we know that he killed his master in an unexpected way. So essence transfer in that case wouldn't have been very easy for Bane to pull off. But yeah.
And they're all so different.
Yes.
In how they like. Bane was not a good actor. Bane was not a subtle person. Bane would not have been able to do the things that like Tenebris did, or Plagueis especially did, or Palpatine did, and he probably wouldn't have approved of the things they did.
For sure.
I feel like that's kind of the biggest argument. Like, even though I did bring up on the Dynasty of Evil podcast that, like, I mostly referenced Drew saying that no, that wasn't what happened. But I think the biggest point for me, as far as it's not Bane, was that Bane was not capable of doing these things. Bane would not approve of what these people did.
Yep. I think that's a good point. I mean, if you want to think that, you know, more power to you. The book sort of leaves it open, but
and I think as far as the Palpatine and Rey confrontation at the end of Cross, I don't think that was meant to be like an essence transfer kind of thing. I think that was more meant to be like, in that moment, they were kind of the last of their lines and kind of embodied the darker light side.
Yes.
More than being like a direct spirit transfer of any kind. And on Palpatine's side, there was more of a like, he's an arrogant shitbag.
Yeah.
Whereas for Rey,
he's like the culmination versus like she's supposed to be the all of them together. Where like the rest of the Jedi were like willingly trying to help her in some Dragon Ball Z way. Spirit rather than Rey trying to take that upon herself. Yeah, no, I agree. The next question is from Javier, who asks, which do you think was luckier, the Legends New Republic or the Canon New Republic? I think he kind of answers the question himself, because in Legends, they've got to deal with a bunch of warlords, the Chad Thrawn, Reborn Emperor, the Yuuzhan Vong, and then they end up being kind of dismantled anyway. And then in Canon, the New Republic got rid of the Empire fairly quickly, then has 30 years of peace until they're blown up. I mean, I think the New Republic in Canon is pretty lucky that the Empire sort of capitulated as they did, because both factions are kind of around for a similar amount of time. The Canon New Republic a bit longer, with a lot less bloodshed.
But they also kind of made their own bed there, where like they acted like there was no empire, but there was still like they knew the First Order was growing in some ways, and they knew Ray Sloan was out there. They just mostly decided not to do anything about it, and Leia decided to do something about it.
Yeah.
And they said, "Hey, Leia, go fuck yourself."
Yeah.
Which the New Republic in Legends, they waited until the Yuzon Vong War to say that. So,
but I mean, at least they had ships.
The New Republic in Canon had some ships as well. Then they got rid of all their ships.
It's weird because like they've kind of dialed back the degree to which they got rid of all their ships, because like we see a bunch of Mon Calamari cruisers at the final battle, although it is possible that those are cruisers Mon Cala made for system defense fleets or whatever. But
yeah, I think that was more what they were going for, where like even though they say the fleet's been disbanded, we know that they had like the Hosnian defense fleet and stuff. It was more like, it seems to be more local defense fleets or like bare bones.
I forget which reference book it was. It talks about how after, because there were more fleets, the one on Hosnian Prime was a lot of their forces, but not a lot. I mean, even if you look at other, it's kind of evident when you look at other stuff too, because you see in like the Poe Dameron comics that the New Republic has military installations across the galaxy. But I think it might have been one of the, like, what are they called again? I've got one right here. Like the visual dictionaries. I think it might have been for episode 8. Talks about how senators basically stole remnants of the New Republic fleet and brought it back to their home territory after Hosnian Prime. So there were ships. They just, they weren't used super well.
Yeah.
It do be like that.
It did be like that, and then it exploded.
Yeah. We've got one more question, sort of a comment from Emilio, who's working on a big project to kind of I guess talk about the politics of the Yuzon Vong War and stuff. I haven't really checked this out yet. I should have before this video, but I'll take a look at it. Sounds pretty cool. You didn't get a chance to look at that, did you?
No, I think that came out. That email came in during the podcast, so I haven't had a chance to look at that. Okay,
so we will take a look at that later. I'm sure it's very cool. Feel free to send us, as always, your fan stuff. Obviously, we're not going to promise to promote it for you or anything, but I like to see, like, that Corran Horn write-up was really cool. And Michael Stackpole saw that, too, so... Yeah. Did Troy Denning write any Vong books?
Star by Star.
Oh, right, Star by, yeah, of course. So he's like one of the most responsive authors on Twitter. Like he'll respond to everything you tweet him. So if you ever want to talk to Troy Denning, message him on Twitter. And Michael Stackpole is also really good as well.
Yeah.
Maybe get them on the podcast someday. Troy Denning for the Swarm War.
Yeah.
Swarm War mega episode. All 3 books, 3 hours, 6 hours, lots of bugs.
You just want to get it all out of the way, don't you?
I can't imagine reading all 3 Dark Nest books in 1 week.
It wouldn't happen.
Yeah, it wouldn't.
We wouldn't be able to do anything else, at least.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that's going to do it for this episode. We'll let Justin rest his beautiful little voice.
Yeah, it's not so beautiful right now. Yeah.
Before we have to stream again. Yeah, you in there.
All right, I'm gonna learn Huddies and complete this. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. As always, consider leaving that juicy, beautiful, very nice, epic 5-star review. Maybe what should they throw in if they've gotten to the end of this episode and they want to leave sort of a little meme in the 5-star review?
Okay, so something that's just about this episode?
Not something that they could kind of organically throw into a review. I don't think it has to be just about this episode. Like a word or...
I just mean something we can't be like something about like Winter and Akbar, because that's every episode.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Yeah. If you could like put the word juicy into your review, I think that would... Yeah.
Just say juicy at least twice.
Twice? Oh my goodness. All right. Well, I'll be happy with 1. Corey wants 2.
Well, if people say like juicy and they're just one after the other, then I'm going to give fewer points. But if you can work the term juicy into your
organically
review twice organically in 2 different places, if we can get some of that organic double juice, then that's 2 Tapcaf points.
Okay.
These are not redeemable for anything of any sort of value, but yeah.
All right. So thanks for watching, guys. I'm going to put the podcast. What was I gonna say? I'm gonna put the podcast to bed. Good night, podcast. See you next time. Do you have anything you want to close with, Corey?
No.
Damn it.